Welcome to Accreditation Made Easy, the podcast that takes the stress out of accreditation. I'm your host, Areaka Jewell, and in each episode, we'll deliver actionable tips, expert insights, and practical strategies to help streamline the process. And of course, make your work life a little easier. Now, whether you're tackling policies, preparing for assessments, or just looking for ways to stay ahead, we've got you covered. Let's simplify accreditation, one step at a time. Hello, and welcome to Accreditation Made Easy. I'm your host, Areaka Jewell. In today's special episode, you're going to hear a conversation I had on the Beyond the Checklist podcast by the National Association for Accreditation Leadership. Kevin and I talked about what it really means to go beyond compliance and how we as accreditation managers can create systems, influence leadership, and support our teams from the inside out. We covered everything from the importance of relationships to building strong file systems to how accreditation is shaping up as a formal leadership track. So if you're new to accreditation or feeling a little stuck, this one is for you. And be sure to grab the companion document linked in the show notes. Whether you're listening or reading, you'll find helpful tips to apply right away. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Beyond the Checklist, the official podcast of the National Association for Accreditation Leadership. I'm your host, Kevin Rhea, co-founder and executive director of the association, and today's episode is one of the most exciting conversations we've had yet. Our guest is Areaka Jewell, a respected voice in accreditation, retired police lieutenant, published author, and the founder of Accreditation Academy. With more than 2 decades of experience across patrol, training, and special operations, Areaka now leads agencies and accreditation professionals through mastering the art and science of law enforcement accreditation. If you've ever wondered what it means to go beyond the checklist, beyond mere compliance, you're about to find out. Areaka, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. I am seriously honored to be asked to come onto your podcast. I love talking about accreditation. It's a very big part of my journey. And I just want to get word out there and talk about what happens behind the scenes, the real work that goes into accreditation.
We really appreciate you being on. Like we talked before the show, I have been a big fan of yours for a while now. I've followed your career, and it's definitely an honor for me to have you on the show. So let's jump right into it. So you began your career in 2002 with the Key West, Florida Police Department, worked your way through several diverse positions within the agency. What sparked your interest in accreditation, and how did that evolve into what you have going on now with the Accreditation Academy?
In all reality, I wasn't looking to get into accreditation initially. Probably like many, it kind of just fell in my lap. I was actually one of 2 training officers with the Key West Police Department, and our then accreditation manager passed away. And so the chief of police came to me and he says, Areaka, you're now the accreditation manager. And I told him, I don't really know anything about accreditation other than they ask us in training for a lot of proofs. So I literally got a crash course in it. But I soon realized how much it really touches every part of an agency and the importance that we need to have systems in place. When people retire or they transfer, things don't fall apart. You have those systems that are going to sustain and continue. I think it just gives an agency purpose. How that evolved into what I do now is all the years of experience that I have, the things that I've learned, I just want to share it with as many people as I can. I feel my Accreditation Academy, whether it's my book, training, podcast, it's just ways that I can share information and try to help others in the process.
That's great. And I do have a copy of your book, The Accreditation Journal, which I think you published last year right here in my hands.
I did.
And in the book, The Accreditation Journal, you devote an entire chapter to crafting effective policies. Was there a specific moment or case that made you realize the power of strong policy?
First of all, it gives everybody in the agency a blueprint, what's expected of them, what they need to do. But not only that, when agencies train on what that is, they take it a step further. I think the foundation of it all is going to be in the policies, and then you just grow from there.
So think back to when you were first assigned to be the accreditation manager at Key West, and you said that the only thing you knew about accreditation to that point was that people would ask you for proofs. But did you experience resistance when you first started in the accreditation process, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I was just an officer. I didn't hold any rank, and now I was expected to go to commanders and sergeants, pretty much everyone that outranked me, and not tell them what to do, but tell them I needed something from them. And there were many times that I had to ask more than once. And when I didn't get something, then I went to my supervisor, and then it came down on them, which didn't make people happy. So I just learned the hard way. I talk a lot about in my book, I think the importance is having relationships. In the position, if you can have relationships with all these people that you are reaching out to get proofs, and it's a mutual thing. You understand what they're doing in their job, and likewise, they understand what you need in accreditation. I think it goes a long way in the success of a program.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And now, in your current role, you've trained hundreds of professionals through Accreditation Academy. What patterns or challenges do you see most often, and how does your training help people get unstuck?
I think knowing that you're not alone in it. It's a community, and there's many other accreditation managers that are doing the same thing. I encourage people to connect with others. I always offer myself as a resource, but connecting with other agencies around them, attending conferences. And my book, I created it like a journal because I wanted people to be able to refer back to it. Because one of the things that I learned early on is there's no SOP on how to do accreditation. So that's pretty much what sparked me to write the book is I want to give an accreditation Bible, something that people can go back to, because accreditation is not just a one-time thing. It's something that you keep doing over and over, and you're continually looking internally to improve your processes.
Let's circle back to what you talked about earlier. First of all, is the relationships, and that's really what the purpose of this association is, to be able to establish relationships with accreditation managers, assessors, with agency leaders from all public safety disciplines. Accreditation is discipline agnostic. The programs may be different, but the theory of accreditation is the same regardless of what program that you're involved in. So let's talk about the why of accreditation for just a minute. How do you help agencies move beyond just checking a box and truly embedding these standards into their organizational culture?
It's a shift for sure, to go from thinking of it as just checking a box and showing compliance to actually embedding it into your culture. I have an entire section in my book called Accreditation Mindset, and it goes back to what we touched on, engaging the staff, making them feel like they're a part of the process. It's not just somebody in an office building files. It's an everybody thing. So when everybody can get on board with that, and I've even seen agencies do these inspections and these audits using them as a growth tool. So if they can look inward on themselves and find ways to improve, you really see it start to, it's just a normal thing. So when we can normalize what we're doing here, normalize excellence, and it's not just a burden, it's not just a checkbox, and sharing accountability, I think is what makes accreditation move an agency forward.
Because that can really be a challenge for an accreditation manager who is a police officer that doesn't have any rank, or even a professional staff. It can be kind of difficult to get people to get you the information that you need in order for your agency to be successful. So kind of the thought process that I used, especially when I was running the program out here in Arizona, I used to teach people that accreditation managers, when they ask for something, that really comes with the authority of the chief of police, because it's an agency goal. The chief made it a priority for your agency, and it's really the accreditation manager who is fulfilling that goal of the chief. So if an officer, if a professional staff, if they're having difficulty getting the information that they need, the chief really needs to make it a priority. Have you seen that?
I have. In fact, I was just on an assessment this week, and seeing how involved the chief was, and it was coming from the top down, people listen.
Absolutely. But are there certain standards that you think, and I know you're most familiar with Florida accreditation, so we'll stick with that for the time being, but are there certain standards that you think kind of lend themselves more naturally to integration into the culture? And what I'm thinking is, and you made reference to it in your book, having a written directive on written directives.
Yes, there is a written directive on there's a standard on written directives.
Yeah. And so really that's kind of the basis of everything, right? So in order for police officers or professional staff to be able to find specific directions, and I say all the time, accreditation doesn't mean that you're going to do everything 100% right 100% of the time. It just means that you have systems in place to handle when the bad things happen, because they are going to happen.
Right.
And so having that written directive on your written directive system is really important, because what I think when I think of a written directive system is, how often are you going to review your policies? How often are you going to update your policies? We had a training class last week with Mike Warren, who's a leadership expert, and he said that the effective date on the policy should really be an expiration date, because that's when that policy, that snapshot in time when that policy was effective. And since then, things may have changed. So how do you able to coach agencies, coach accreditation managers about how to handle their written directives?
I would say come up with a system to review them, keeping them a living document, whether it's setting them up on a review cycle once every 3 years, your high liability every year, just getting into a system. And I think another important thing with policies is bringing in your subject matter experts. Oftentimes, your top-level people are writing the policies and not taking into consideration how it's going to be applied at the line level. So bringing in those subject matter experts that are going to be able to give that applicability to it, I think goes a long way to people actually following the policy.
That's a big point, especially, or even using like some type of document management system, whether it's Power DMS or Lexipol or PMAM or whatever it is that you choose to use, having a system in place in order to review those policies. I used to tell people all the time, if your policy manual was written using a typewriter, you probably need a new policy manual.
Absolutely.
We will be back with more of our interview right after this short accreditation news break.
It's time for an accreditation news break from the Lebanon Daily News in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. A story by Matthew Toth. More than a year and a half after the creation of the Western Lebanon County Regional Police Department, officials celebrate the county's first consolidated police department, earning state recognition for their service in 2 boroughs. Representatives of the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association officially presented the department with a certification from the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission during an informal ceremony on July 9th. According to the association's database, the Regional Police Department is currently the only Lebanon County Police Department that was accredited in 2025. More than 375 agencies in Pennsylvania have attempted to qualify for the accreditation program out of more than 1,100 Pennsylvania agencies. And from the Pine Island Eagle News, the Lee County Emergency Medical Services has received a full 3-year reaccreditation from the Commission on Accreditation of Ambulance Services. The reaccreditation confirms the organization's compliance with CAS's national standards of excellence. Lee County EMS is one of less than 200 ambulance services in the United States and Canada, and only one of 26 to successfully complete the voluntary review process in the state of Florida, which included a completion of a comprehensive application and on-site inspection by national experts in emergency medical services. The on-site inspection concluded with no deficiencies across the 107 standards areas. And that is your accreditation news break.
Now back to the show.
Let's talk about your lessons as an assessor and a team leader. So you've obviously conducted dozens of assessments for the Commission for Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation. But from an assessor perspective, what does a successful agency look and feel like when the standards are working for them?
Well, I would say the minute that you walk in, you just feel it the minute that you walk in. There's a sense of openness. You're being welcomed. You know, back in the day when I first became an assessor, we would laugh that when assessors show up, people run and hide. You don't see that as much anymore, especially these last couple of weeks that I've been on assessments. When people are right there to greet you, to welcome you, they're leaning into the questions that you're asking them. You just feel it. It's not forced. It's embedded in their culture.
You know, and I'll tell you a quick story. I was doing an assessment one time, and I won't name the agency, but myself and my team leader get on site, and we start going through the files, and we see a lot of written directives in the file, but we don't see any proofs in the file. And so we asked the accreditation manager, hey, what's going on? There's no proofs in the file. And he said, well, we just published our new policy manual like a week ago, just before you got here. So we really haven't had time to develop any proofs. And so they were really trying to wet ink the entire assessment. And myself and my team leader, we got to tell the accreditation manager and the chief that that's not how this works. And so we were going to actually cancel the assessment and come back later after they had built their files. But we ended up sitting there for 2.5 days and watching the accreditation manager build his files right in front of us.
Oh, my goodness.
It was quite an ordeal.
Similarly, though, this week, the agency that I was at was a small one, and they had kind of the same thing, at just policies, but a note that said they didn't have any occurrences. And so in our exit interview that we had this morning, I said, even though you don't have any occurrences, you may have some assessors that just look at that and say, okay, and move on. But a good assessor is going to follow up and ask the people in the agency whether or not they know what they would do if one of those situations occurred.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor.
This ad break is brought to you by, well, it could be your organization. If you're passionate about supporting accreditation professionals across law enforcement, fire, EMS, corrections, communications, and emergency management, we'd love to feature you here. Sponsor this segment and get your message in front of the people shaping public safety excellence nationwide. Just send an email to Kevin at admin@nail.org to learn more.
What are some of the red flags you've seen out there?
More often than not, I see that the policy is outdated. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, like in practice, but the policy is not keeping up, which relates back to what you were saying about having a system to review these things to make sure that they stay updated. So more times than not, I'm having agencies, you need to bring your policy into compliance. You need to make the policy match the practice.
I'll share a red flag that happened on one of my assessments where I was looking through the agency files, and they had requested waivers for their canine program because they said they did not have a canine program. And it was a relatively small agency. And then as I got into the on-site itself, I kept seeing this dog running around the station. And I was like, what is this? And they're like, oh, well, he goes out on the road and we use him as a kind of a community relations thing. I'm like, okay, so you put him in a patrol car. Oh, yeah. Okay. And there's only one person that handles him. Oh, yeah, he's our canine handler. And I'm like, okay, just because he's not a narcotics dog or a tracking dog, it doesn't mean that you do not have a canine program. So it's just kind of interesting to see some of the things that as an assessor causes your radar to come on and a red flag to come up. I
find during interviews, because a file can be built perfectly. They can make it show one thing, but when you really get out into the field and you ask the questions, I was reviewing the property and evidence section and took me into the space with all the drugs in it and was talking about how after this assessment, they're going to do a drug burn. And I said, oh, when's the last time you did a destruction? And he said, oh, we did the last big one last year. Well, they had a note in the file that said, we have not purged in the last 3 years, anything.
So it's those type of inconsistencies that the assessors are looking for. And look, no assessor wants an agency to not be successful, right? The purpose of accreditation is to try to ensure that everyone is successful. But, sometimes the agencies can be their own worst enemies.
I agree.
Your certifications, you have both the Florida Certified Accreditation Professional, or CAP, Power DMS professional designation. What role do these credentials play in the broader movement of kind of professionalizing accreditation?
Well, I think you talked about it a little bit earlier, like in law enforcement. I know both of us had a career in law enforcement, and you basically have a track. Not so much accreditation doesn't get the spotlight like that, but I think certifications like these help legitimize it, standardize a process for accreditation professionals, and it lets leaders know that accreditation is more of a strategic thing, not a clerical thing.
Shortly after the first of the year, our training committee is going to be working on kind of a professional designation program. So we would love at the National Association of Accreditation Leadership, we would love to be able to offer some type of professional designation like PAM, Professional Accreditation Manager, or something like that. And then also turn around and partner with some of our universities. I know I'm almost done with my PhD in criminal justice leadership from Liberty University.
Oh, nice.
And Liberty University is seeking to become one of the major players in criminal justice education. So I would love to be able to sell our professional designation program to Liberty and maybe offer our members some type of college credit for going through our professional designation program.
Awesome.
So let me ask you, do you think we're getting closer to seeing accreditation recognized as a formal leadership track within agencies? Because I think most of the accreditation programs, and it doesn't matter whether you're in law enforcement, fire, EMS, corrections, emergency management, or communications, they're all starting to see the exact same issue. And that is, once you finish a cycle, the accreditation manager ends up getting promoted or moved on to a different project. And then you get a new accreditation manager that's assigned. And then it really starts the learning curve all over again. I was talking to Sarah McAtee, who is the executive director of the Commission on Accreditation for Ambulance Services, or CAS. And she said, her quote is that this is a process, not a program. So a lot of times when we see agencies that treat accreditation like a program, they're not really looking at the professionalization or the professional development of the person that's actually doing the work. So do you think we're getting closer to seeing accreditation as a formal leadership track within agency?
I think it's working that way, sending them to training, getting them credentialed. We need to invest in our leaders, train them. And for programs like the ones you said, the ones that I have, and giving them credentials, I think adds to that.
What's your vision of where accreditation is going, like over the next 5 years? What changes can we make as an association that represents accreditation managers and assessors? Where can we go from here?
On the big scale of accreditation, I think most of them are voluntary processes. They're not mandatory. But I see a wave of it being more mandatory, which I think would open up opportunities for associations to provide more training for people to understand what the process is. I think there's going to become a much greater need in the next 5 years for that type of thing.
Yeah, that's great. I know that I had talked to one of the directors, and they were talking about the professional development or training of accreditation managers and assessors, and that was something that their agencies were really asking for, but they felt that it was out of their depth. These professional accrediting bodies, their job is to set professional standards and assess agencies based upon those standards. Once you change your focus and start getting into the realm of training, it's also not what their strength is.
I agree.
So that's where, like the National Association for Accreditation Leadership, and for the training classes that you provide and all the resources that you provide on your website, are going to become really important for empowering the next generation of accreditation managers. So for those that are new to accreditation, what advice do you give them to stay encouraged, stay effective? Sometimes it feels like you're working in a silo in a basement with no windows. So what advice do you give them to stay motivated and stay encouraged?
Just like that, don't stay isolated. There's a whole community out there, everybody going through the same thing, others cheering you on. One of the quotes in my book that I really like is by Robert Collier. It says, "The success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out." And I really think that's what accreditation is. If you celebrate the small wins, even if it's just building a proof into a file, it goes right in line with this book that I'm currently reading. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. He basically says tiny little habits compounded over time result in huge results. So it can be overwhelming when you're new, almost like drinking water through a fire hose, they say, but just take it one day at a time, one task at a time, and it'll turn out to be big. And the momentum will just keep going. Like I said, accreditation, it's not just a one and done, it's a journey.
Like we talked about earlier, the association was formed not to compete with PACs or with peer-led groups of accreditation managers who do a very good job of communicating with one another on the how to do accreditation. What we're focused on is really the why to do accreditation, and it really goes into how are you going to protect your agency. Last week, we had an opportunity to hear from Mike Warren, and he was talking about protecting the agency from lawsuits. And the accreditation manager is really the key person that's involved in protecting the agency. When we have accreditation managers that are just starting out, kind of like you did in Key West, just given this assignment, are there books or mentors or communities or websites that you would recommend that they check out?
I'm so glad you asked that, Kevin, because I consider myself an accreditation resource. I recently published a book, so if you're a new person and you like to read or you like to have something in your hands, take notes, refer back to, this is it. So Accreditation Journal, Mastering Accreditation Standards, a stress-free guide for law enforcement. And it's also available in the audio version, which leads me to my next resource, a podcast. So wherever you get your podcasts, if you are somebody who likes to listen in the evening on your walks, morning commutes, or just sitting in the office, every week I publish a little helpful tip for anyone working in law enforcement accreditation. And if you go to my website, I have the Accreditation Academy Content Hub, where I send out weekly helpful tips. You get it in your email. I have forms and templates, and also an online accreditation manager training, little 5 to 15 minute training videos for the entire process. And what I'm most proud of is I built out a completely stocked proof bank. I'm calling it a proof bank. I literally got example proofs of compliance for every standard. So if you're not sure what a proof for a particular standard might look like, there's examples in it, and not just for law enforcement here in Florida. I also have corrections, communications, CALIA. So check it out. And obviously, if I don't have that one, let me know and I will work to get it. So head over to my website. It's www.accreditationacademy.net. You'll see my book, the podcast, and you can sign up for all these freebies or paid services.
But beyond that, there's a network around you of other agencies doing the same thing that you're doing. So I suggest you reach out.
All right, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up with a quick lightning round. And I know that I hate to put you on the spot, but we'll run through some of these and see what you think. So your favorite assessment site location so far?
So far, I would say Jupiter Island. So it is a small island community on the east coast of Florida, beautiful area. But what fascinated me the most about it is, so it's a public safety department there. Each one of their members are triple certified. They are police, fire, and EMS in one.
That's great. I'll tell you, my favorite assessment site when I was doing assessments was Speedway, Indiana. It's a small town bordered on all sides by the city of Indianapolis, and 2 square miles of their city is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So they were able to take us as an assessment team out to the track where they run the Indy 500. So
that's cool.
The most underrated standard.
Good question. The most underrated standard, I would say, has to do with training supervisors. When you're a supervisor, you get promoted. There's standards that say you got to be trained either before or shortly thereafter. I think it's common sense, but agencies treat it like a checkbox. Okay, we sent you to first line supervision or whatever it's called in your respective organization. But the first line supervisors can either make or break your accreditation program. And I think you have the opportunity to start there. If your training program includes an accreditation component, you're going to go a long way of shifting the culture right at the front line.
Yeah, back at my prior agency, the last 5 years, I was a training and standards sergeant. And so I would handle all the training plus the accreditation for the agency. And we implemented kind of like a shortened FTO program for supervisors as soon as they got promoted. Because I remember when I got promoted to sergeant, one day I'm a patrol officer and the next day I have stripes on my sleeve and I'm working midnights, and I am not only a police officer, I'm a sergeant, I'm the chief of police, I'm the mayor, I'm the DPW.
You're the top dog.
Yeah. And it's difficult to make that transition from a buddy one day to boss the next day. And then all of a sudden you're the smartest guy in the room, even though you don't know anything more than you do the day before that.
So I was promoted to sergeant. There were 4 sergeants on midnights, and I did kind of an FTO program with one of the senior sergeant. The very next sergeant that got promoted, they sent him to me to train him.
Yeah.
Like, really? I'm the newest person.
What song gets you through a report writing marathon? Some of these accreditation reports can be pretty lengthy.
You're telling me. How about I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor?
Oh, that's great. Coffee or energy drinks?
Both.
Yeah.
I'm a big Java Monster fan.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like you need any more caffeine in your life.
Well, it's coffee and chaos in a can.
Oh, there you go. Best piece of leadership advice you have ever received?
Take care of your people. Really invest in your people. Take the time to train them, educate them. When I came out of accreditation, I was promoted as a sergeant, and everybody said, she's the one that's going to hold us accountable. She's the one who wrote the policy manual. I said, I didn't write the policy manual. I mean, I was involved in it, but they came to respect me because I was transparent about my leadership. I made it clear that if they messed up, they didn't follow the policy, that I would hold them accountable. But likewise, I would stand behind them if they followed the policy and somebody was questioning it. I think that is the best leadership advice that I could give anyone else, is invest in your people.
That's great advice. Areaka, thank you for a powerful conversation. Any last words for the audience, especially people that are just beginning to realize the impact they can have through accreditation?
Sure. That it's not about the policies. It's not about the checklist. It comes down to the people. It's how we serve our communities better. It's how we support our teams from the inside out. And I would say focus on progress, the little wins. It's not going to be perfect, but you'll find that accreditation becomes less about the 3-ring binder and more about what the purpose of it is. And I think that's when the magic happens.
Well, thank you very much. To connect with Areaka or learn more about her training programs, visit accreditationacademy.net. And if you're a member of the National Association for Accreditation Leadership, we encourage you to stay tuned to our website, thenaal.org, for more exclusive resources and learning opportunities. Until next time, keep building strong systems, supporting your teams, and going beyond the checklist.
That's it for today's episode of Accreditation Made Easy. Big thanks again to Kevin and the team at the National Association for Accreditation Leadership for having me on their show. If you're just getting started in accreditation, or if you want tools to make your journey easier, be sure to check out the free resources at accreditationacademy.net/sign-up. As always, I have a free companion resource. I'll put a link in the show notes. Until next time, friends, let's keep making accreditation easy, one step at a time.